Unchained TV's Jane Velez Mitchell joining you live with an extraordinary expert panel talking about the Baywatch chicken rescue trial. That sounds a little crazy, but it's not. Alexandra Paul, who's famous from Baywatch, rescued a sick chicken. Now she's on trial and could go to jail along with her co-defendant for 6 months. Let's take a look at the crime in progress, the alleged crime, what the defendants are calling an open rescue, then we'll discuss with our expert panel.
Hi, Unchained. It's Alexandra. Thank you so much for being here and covering the trial. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much for covering this, and thank you everybody at home who's watching and supporting the rescue.
We're going to go straight out to Carla Cabral outside court where it's pouring. Bring us up to date. What is happening, Carla?
Well, it's been a very exhausting day, and as you can see behind me, it started pouring down rain. The entire day has been spent on voir dire, which is the jury selection. So the judge at the beginning of the day spent a good deal of time really making sure that the potential jurors understood the serious nature of what was happening. And when they started questioning the potential jurors, that was a big issue, that they take this matter very seriously. The idea that this was an entire waste of time came up, and that was split maybe 50-50 amongst the potential jurors, that a lot of them felt that this was a complete waste of time, but some of them felt it was a waste of time for the prosecution to be using all of this time and money to move forward with such a tiny, petty theft, while others felt that it was a waste of time because they felt like they already knew the crime occurred. And that was a big question of, could these jurors remain impartial once they saw the video? Like, would they consider the video to convict Alexandra and Alicia? And so those were really big topics today.
When you say the video, are you talking about the video of Alexandra Paul and Alicia Santurio actually going to the truck and rescuing the chickens? Or are you talking about the other video, the undercover video of what happens inside the Foster Farms slaughterhouse? And while we have not actually shown that heretofore, I've decided it's time to show the undercover footage that led to Alexandra Paul and Alicia Santurio concluding that these animals were going to suffer illegal cruelty. Let's watch the undercover DXE footage from inside Foster Farms. So it's very difficult to look at. It's very difficult to edit. I want to go and just get the reaction from our expert panel to the videotape, which was taped prior to Alexandra Paul and Alicia Santurio deciding, well, we're going to take these sick chickens off the slaughter truck before they can let that happen to them. Maybe we start with Dotsie Bausch, your reaction.
I'm going to move on, Jane, to somebody that can speak.
Because it's too upsetting?
You haven't watched that stuff in a really long time? Because I am not at risk of going back to eating living beings. So it's just, what are we fucking doing? What are we doing? Why is this okay? Why is this legal? Why is this? It's just so many questions. I hope it jarred the audience that maybe is still eating these beautiful creatures, so they know the truth. That's what this trial is really all about.
Thank you, and I'm sorry that you were upset by this. Ellen Dent of Animal Alliance Network, what is your reaction to that footage, and do you think it's absolutely crucial for the jury to see that footage?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a reason why these places don't have windows. There's a reason why you don't see the hellacious acts that are happening inside of these places. So, I mean, it's absolutely horrific. And seeing these poor chickens going over to other chickens that aren't moving, I mean, it's just absolutely heartbreaking. So I'm with Dotsie. I mean, it just leaves me speechless. And I do hope that the jury does see this. And I hope the public sees this too, so they can make a conscious decision. They can be informed about not what they're eating, but who.
Yes. And so let me ask Nathan Semmel, who is a former Manhattan assistant district attorney, do you think the jury will see that footage? Because it changes everything.
I sure hope so. I mean, I'm hoping Carl might have an update for us as to whether that's going to happen. But, you know, you see a video like that and you hear about some jurors thinking that this is, you know, a waste of time. But if you see a video like that, it becomes immediately apparent that it's not a waste of time. I mean, when you think about stealing, right? When we think about stealing, why does a person steal? They steal because it benefits themselves or somebody else, or you're trying to really, you know, you're really trying to deprive somebody else of their property and hurt them. Well, we know that these chickens were not taken because, you know, because Alexandra and Alicia wanted to have just a couple of chickens for themselves. And we know that Foster Farms slaughters tens of millions of chickens annually. So 2 chickens means nothing to them. So while the video might make it appear that this is a waste of time because the quote unquote crime is caught on tape, when you see what happens inside there, it's anything but a waste of time, and it's anything but a theft. It's a rescue. And, you know, it's important during jury selection to get these kind of things out, get the jury speaking about these kind of things, because hopefully when they see the video, the real video of what goes on inside, it will change some hearts and minds.
So let me ask back to the outside of court, Carla Cabral. When they said they thought it was a waste of time, were they making a comment, do you think that chickens don't matter? Is that what they were saying? Or were they saying that it's a waste of time for taxpayer money to be used on prosecuting these 2 women who tried to rescue some sick chickens?
It was a mix of both. So that was good to see that, you know, although there are some people that were just angry that the prosecutors would even bother to charge Alexandra and Alicia over, you know, 2 chickens, there were people who were also angry that that 2 chickens would be thought of as a waste of time. So there were people on both sides of that argument for sure.
Yeah. And so, you know, I want to just play a quick clip of Wayne talking about jury selection, because I've covered a lot of trials. I have covered celebrity murder trials where it didn't seem the jury selection process would take that long. Here's what he had to say about this. It's several days now that they've been arguing over who's going to decide this case in terms of which jurors.
We kind of get a chance to ask the jury some questions, hear from them. It's going to be our only opportunity to hear from the jury until the end of the trial. And the point of that is to determine whether any jurors are biased. You know, so for example, if they have some pre-existing animus towards animal rights activists. That's important for us to get out and ask them, well, does that mean you're not the right juror for this case? And it probably does. In fact, from a statutory and constitutional perspective, a jury is disqualified from sitting on a jury when they have some pre-existing bias. And so we get a chance to ask questions and strike the jurors for cause.
So I want to ask Mick Davutian, what do you think of the fact that it's taking so long to pick a jury?
I really don't know, Jane. It seems unusual, but of course, I don't have a legal background, so I really don't know. But if you don't mind, I want to go back to the video you played. You know, just like Dotsy, I kind of avoid watching these videos. I've been a vegan for years, most of my life vegetarian. I don't contribute to this suffering. So in fact, I got off social media a few years ago because it's just so sickening to see it day in, day out, when what we're trying to do is help these animals. And let's face it, so many of our friends and family are literally paying to have these horrors done on these amazing individuals. And so I wanted to say, I did glance over at the video. You see those 2 or 3 chickens kind of thrown off to the side, flapping their wings. Those are just 2 or 3 individuals suffering. And then we lose sight of the fact that the line is moving so fast on all sides, right? So what was it? 140 chickens are slaughtered every minute on each line. So there's 4 lines. That's what, 540 chickens every minute having their throats cut. It's unimaginable. It is an atrocity.
I want to thank you for that, Mick. I want to read the statement of Foster Farms. And I want to read that because now there is some new coverage happening. Okay, so, and the interesting thing is, the news is talking about open rescue. They're not just saying these women stole chickens. They're saying video shows open rescue. Again, here's the Los Angeles Times covering this. Baywatch's Alexandra Paul on trial. Video shows open rescue of Foster Farms chickens. That is a breakthrough, I think. And before we read the Foster Farms statement, I want to go to Donnie Moss about that. Do you think it's a breakthrough that mainstream media is referring to open rescue?
Absolutely. Who would have thought that those words would be used with regard to, what in the past would have been described as a theft? So that's really phenomenal. I'm struck by the fact, Foster Farms is named in the titles of these articles, and they might be second guessing their decision to allow the prosecution to go forward with this case, because it could potentially bring Foster Farms a lot of negative publicity. Surely some people are going to see this coverage. I just saw the story on Inside Edition. We saw the LA Times story. People are going to then Google Foster Farms to find out what the story is behind the story. I'd also just like to point out, with regard to the footage you showed, Jane, I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of the jurors. The footage from the slaughter lines, from those conveyor belts, it's a little, I think, difficult for some people to wrap their brains around what it is they're looking at. It all is happening very quickly. And I wonder if jurors and members of the mainstream public who don't know what we know see those animals as individuals, or if they see them as the products that they're treated as. And so I wonder if there's undercover footage that could be shown of what takes place inside of Foster Farms, inside the factory farms, where, the individual animals are, have their beaks seared off, where they live in these horrifically crowded conditions, where they collapse under the weight of their breasts, where they're living in their own excrement, where they're tossed into the crates for transport. I mean, to me, that might be even more powerful than the horrific slaughter footage that you showed. And I hope that there's a chance for the jury to see that.
All right. Well, let's read the statement, because there's a lot of things that are very serious allegations made against Foster Farms. So this is what the New York Times said that undercover footage showed that you just saw. And basically they said 140 chickens are killed every minute on each of the 4 slaughtering lines, as you heard from Mick. And live birds are seen thrown, crushed, left for dead, and suffocated under piles of dead birds. Some aren't properly stunned before they're killed. And while the DXC footage doesn't show this, inspectors with the USDA have reported seeing evidence of birds at this facility having been dunked alive into boiling water. So here is the statement from Foster Farms. And it says, Foster Farms places the highest priority on the welfare of the flocks entrusted in our care. In 2013, the company became the first major poultry producer to be independently audited and certified by the American Humane Association and continues to receive outstanding animal welfare audit scores. All Foster Farm team members that come in contact with our flocks receive comprehensive annual animal welfare training. Video observation and review at our local facilities ensures that appropriate practices are followed. Though it's through its past actions, Direct Action Everywhere has proven itself to be an extremist organization with a self-proclaimed goal of discouraging consumers from eating any meat, poultry, fish, or dairy. We do not believe this reflects the sentiment of Californians. Direct Action Everywhere allegations against Foster Farms lack merit and are a disservice to the declaration of our Foster Farm team members. Okay, that is the statement of Foster Farms. We invite them on anytime. Let's do a round robin. Like, what does everybody have to say about that statement, starting with Dotsy Bausch?
I think it makes me think of two things. The first thing is, I'm in a country right now where macaws are very popular. There's just tons and tons of them. The birds that are, green and red, and they're just, they're beautiful colors to look at. They're monogamous. So, people think that they're really smart, or maybe not so smart. But if this was what we just saw, a scene with macaws, there wouldn't even be that type of place. We all say, oh, somebody just said it's like rescuing a dog from a hot car. Absolutely. That's exactly what it's like. But people connect with dogs. But just one other type of bird, same species, one other type of bird, we would never, ever in a million years. So it just shows the extreme lack of connection and the extreme lack of awareness. You would never see a statement like that from Foster Farms if it was a macaw, because there wouldn't even be a macaw factory. And then second, that is just so blatantly obvious is not only the disconnection, but just the lying. I mean, we just saw it. I don't know how they feel like they can get away with that. It's just like some kind of PR agency that's just churning the wheel, I guess, because we literally just watched it. It is everything that they're saying. It's not.
Let me go now back to the courthouse and Carla Cabral. What's happening?
So right now I'm standing, let's see, there's lots of activists who have just left the courtroom right now. So jury selection is still going on. They have not completed the process, so we still don't have an actual jury yet.
Jeez, unbelievable. Well, let me go inside court and play some of the arguments. But you know what? I want to hear from Curtis, because Curtis has been very, very, very key in a lot of these cases, and we'll show you a video that explains why. Curtis, you got a change of venue for a previous case, the one that was in Utah, because you showed that there was outright bias in the town amongst the authorities. Do you think there should be a change of venue here?
I don't know. I don't know where else it would be. I mean, this part of the country, this part of the state, I mean, this industry is everywhere around here. So I don't think it would really fare much different if it was somewhere else.
All right.
I think that, yeah.
You think it's bizarre that jury selection is taking so long, though? Does that indicate that maybe these jurors just are not sympathetic?
No, I think it's good. I think the state thinks that this is, or they thought that it was going to be something short, and this was just some simple petty theft case. I mean, both of the judges that have ruled on pretrial motions in this matter have said, I don't see how this is going to last very long. It's petty theft. It's apparently on video. This is going to go, I can't see this going beyond the end of the week. But what they don't know is that we have, people that are passionate. We have Wayne, who's an amazing animal rights attorney, We have other people within the animal rights community that are attorneys that are representing people, and yeah, they just don't have any idea who they're up against until now. And I think it's good that it's taking this long. I think that the longer this goes on, the better for us.
And they seem to be adding people to their side.
Yeah.
The longer this goes on.
Yeah, they added somebody to the state added somebody to their team yesterday. I don't know if that person was, you know, added at the last minute because things didn't go well for them the first day. So that seemed to be cool. I think the one thing where we definitely have an advantage is with this jury selection, and with Wayne in particular, and also Chris Carraway. He's with University of Denver's Animal Law Program.
He's the other defense attorney?
What's that?
He's the other defense attorney.
Yes, he's one of the other defense attorneys. He's pro-hocked in for Alicia Santurio.
Yeah.
So with Wadir, with the jury selection, there's just no. So I'll give you a specific example of something that literally just happened in court about a half an hour ago. So a new batch of jurors got added into the panel, and one of them was a manager of a grocery store. And I think an average person, you know, maybe a state assigned defense attorney, there's no way they would have been able to uncover this guy's bias and ask the questions like Wayne just did, because Wayne has the animal rights experience. Wayne has the animal rights mind. He was able to get this guy to talk about his relationships with vendors, and it's asking, well, do you work with any meat vendors or anything like that? And was like, well, kind of, partially. And he keeps asking these questions. And he gets this guy to admit that, yeah, we have worked with Foster Farms in the past, and they are a vendor of ours. And, you know, when their business suffers, our business suffers. So, you know, I think I would be, you know, biased against the defense due to what I'm doing. And like, there's just no, I just cannot see how anyone else, aside from someone with, you know, the animal rights brain, would be able to like get somebody to go down that rabbit hole like that. And he did it with a couple other occasions, and hopefully y'all will be able to see the clips once we get them to you and get stuff uploaded to YouTube. But yeah, it's this jury selection process is really awesome. It's really cool to watch. It's really exciting to watch, and I think it's going well. And I think the longer it goes on, the better for the trial in general.
I want to say, panel, that Curtis is kind of famous because in the previous trial where Wayne Shung, who is now representing Alexandra Paul, but he happens to be a constitutional law professor and represented himself after doing a similar thing, going into the Smithfield factory farm and rescuing some sick piglets. Well, it was Curtis who got a change of venue. And the reason is that he was walking around the company town and the cops basically tried to chase him away, and he caught it on videotape in a video that has gone absolutely viral. I want to see if I can find it here, because here it is. This is the video that then was shown on a whole bunch of other platforms and literally has gotten millions of views, of Curtis, the guy you just heard from, talking to a cop in Utah. It's one of the reasons why they got a change of venue out of a company town to a different town in Utah that ended up acquitting Wayne Shung on all counts.
You have to have a permit.
Permit for a sidewalk?
Let me get my camera on too.
Sure.
Okay. You're not.
This is not a good look.
You're not to be spreading.
This is not a good look.
You're not supposed to be down here.
This is public property.
You're not to be down here doing this. Do you realize that your company caused a problem in our community?
Do you have anything relevant to say to me?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I've asked you to stop.
Okay, I'm on public property.
You need to stop.
Okay.
Go ahead. You need to stop. You realize you're not wanted in this community and you've been asked to leave?
I don't care.
I know you don't care. That's the problem with your group. You just don't care about people or anybody. Do you understand? You've been asked to leave.
All of this for handing out some flyers. This is how much
all of
promotion.
All of this because your group has been a direct influence on shutting down Smithfield Foods. You don't realize that's the major employer in our county.
You don't think I know that?
There's a lot of people that have lost their jobs, and you come into this community and pour salt into the wounds of the people that have lost their jobs.
It's not the intent.
You need to well, I don't care what the intent is. What you're doing is causing a disturbance in the community.
I'm not trying to cause a disturbance. I'm just trying to have conversations with people.
You are.
And if people don't want to talk with me, I say thanks for your time and I'm on with your day.
I'm going to stand right here and I'm going to tell people not to talk to you.
Then fine, do that. This is great content for us. Absolutely ridiculous. This is very anti-free speech.
I'm sorry, there is a humorous element to that because it is just so wrong. Curtis, wow. All I could say is wow. Mick Davidian, you were chuckling. What do you make of that? Because it is illustrative of how when DXZ goes into these agricultural communities and tries to show the cruelty, the powers that be that should be protecting their free speech rights, well, you just saw it right on tape. What happens?
Well, it shows you how, entrenched it is. So actually at some point, I think we should reevaluate this whole idea of, being tried by a jury of your peers in the community, because it actually is detrimental to these types of fights, historical fights. We are fighting in communities where the people that are doing all these horrendous crimes, committing the crimes against these animals, they are actually the biggest employers, just like the cops said in the video, right? So, the cops in their pockets, the politicians in the area, and all the local politicians, forget about the major politicians, they're all in the pockets of big industry. So how are we supposed to fight against that?
Well, but let's point out that the good news in that story was that Wayne was acquitted on all counts after they moved the trial from what was truly considered a company town to another part of Utah that was not quite as dependent on Smithfield. Do you see similar issues happening in this town, Donnie Moss? Is it something that it's going to be wherever you try to bring up this issue of animal rights and the fact that just because people kill animals for food doesn't justify anything and everything?
I don't think that we can extrapolate from what happened in Utah. I think that this is a new county. These are new jurors, and I just don't think we can predict what's going to happen. Jane, I just want to come back to the Foster Farms statement because we got sidetracked. And, in Foster, that was a classic case of humane washing. The phrases that they used, American Humane Association, right, the team members and animal welfare audits, it's designed to make people believe that they're running a humane operation. On the one hand, it's like, are we living in the Twilight Zone? How can they say this? On the other hand, I'm not surprised at all because lying doesn't have consequences. So of course they're going to lie to the public because they're motivated by their bottom line, and acknowledging the truth would have an impact on their bottom line.
Interesting. And we invite Foster Farms on anytime. Again, this story is starting to make headlines. It was a little bit of a slow go at first because we're still in jury selection after 3 full days. They still haven't selected a jury, but now we see the Los Angeles Times is covering this. We're seeing that Inside Edition is covering it. So it's actually starting to gain traction, and who knows where that's going to end up, because the New York Times did do a story on the undercover video that has disturbed so many people on this panel, and some people on this panel even moved to tears. Let's listen to the attorney for the other defendant, not Alexandra Paul. She's defended by Wayne Chung, but the other defendant, who is Alicia Santurio, and some of the points that he made in court today, talking about cruelty.
Both Ms. Santurio and Ms. Paul have experience with rescue chickens, with ill chickens, with sick chickens. Specifically, Ms. Santurio has spent 2 years working at an animal rescue in which She has to care for thousands of chickens, hundreds of those sick chickens. And that's an important, relevant fact to her belief that the chicken she rescued was in fact ill. Additionally, Ms. Santurio and Ms. Paul were aware directly or indirectly that generally foster farms properties, regardless of which one it is, are sites of extraordinary unlawful animal cruelty, not condoned by the exceptions in California's animal cruelty law. This is pertinent to their knowledge and their belief and their intent. But even more specifically, they were provided with undercover footage from inside the Livingston slaughterhouse, showing, to no surprise of them and those familiar with foster farms, more exceptional unlawful animal cruelty. This includes birds that are being thrown from the conveyor belt, live birds onto the ground, being covered by other carcasses of dead birds. This includes birds being hung improperly by their necks when they should be hung by their feet. This includes birds that are not being improperly stunned before slaughter. And the videos that they've watched show these birds lifting their necks up, missing the automated blade, and requiring a worker under fast conditions to cut their necks manually. And a lot of these issues are further corroborated by later FOIA records that we'll be discussing later today.
So do you think, couple of questions to our attorney, Nathan Semmel, a former Manhattan District Attorney, do you think that that kind of conversation, which happened before the judge in pre-trial arguments, will get in front of the jury? And is there a law that bars cruelty? Because I know that there is a California law that says you can't be cruel to animals. Does it cover these chickens?
California really is probably the most liberal state in the country when it comes to animal cruelty laws. You know, in terms of
sorry to cut in, guys.
Oh, I have something
Okay,
I want to
yeah.
tell them.
Sure. Let's do it. I'm sorry about that. Go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, so we're going through jury selection, and there was this one woman who we really liked, but unfortunately she has a family thing tomorrow, so she's not going to be able to stay on our jury. But when she was leaving, she lips the words "thank you" to me. So I was like, you know,
Wow.
I'm happy.
And now, Alexandra, are you optimistic over the length of time it's taking, or do you think that this might be trouble because you're having such a long time picking the jury?
Can you repeat that?
Is this a good sign that it's taking 3 days to pick the jury, or is it a bad sign?
It's not a bad sign at all. But what's interesting is that the jurors in the beginning were pissed off that they were here for a rescue of 2 chickens. They thought it was wasting their time, and there was almost a mutiny, not quite, but they were upset that they were here. And the interesting thing is, they were more upset at Foster Farms for whom they felt brought the case, when technically, of course, the prosecution brings the case, but they were really angry at Foster Farms, which was, I think, a good sign. And now that they're realizing that the case is more complicated and it's really not about just 2 chickens, which to us, of course, 2 chickens means everything, but to them, they realize that it's about more than that, and they're now curious about why did we do this? And so, yeah, so that is one of the advantages about being in the courtroom with them for the last 3 days, is that they're understanding that this is about more than what they thought.
Wow. So do you feel that this is making history? Because now you've been on Inside Edition. Now the Los Angeles Times is starting to cover this case. Of course, you know, you could end up, if you're convicted, in the New York Times. Are you making history?
Well, you know, Jane, I'm just standing on your shoulders because you're the one who's getting it out there, and that's the most important thing. So, you know, we're hopefully taking steps towards making it legitimate that animals be represented in court, one step at a time. You know, hopefully soon we won't have to be here and the chickens will be in our stead. That's our goal, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, you guys seem very upbeat. I mean, considering that you could both do 6 months in jail, it's absolutely amazing. So still no jury.
No jury tomorrow. We're starting in the afternoon. Frankly, you want to talk? I don't think we're going to get a jury unless the judge needs to he has to bring out his whip. Is what he has to do. Start whipping these attorneys to move it along. But yeah, yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I hope we get a jury tomorrow. And so far, you know, they're really wonderful people that I'm seeing in the jury box. Really thoughtful, caring people who feel they can be unbiased. And I believe that they will be.
That is so wonderful. Well, I know it's pouring out there. I don't want you to get a cold, so I'll let you go.
I get sick.
I mean,
all right.
Somebody who has a question before they run off, like,
they're running off. They're running off. It's raining, but Wayne is talking about the jury.
Okay.
Sorry, two people talking at the same time.
Yeah.
What? Ask the question again.
They kept saying past when the turn came to them for the jury question.
Yeah, I mean, it's disadvantage hugely. I don't know why they're not using their peremptories. I mean, I think that's a mistake. But I also think that, you know, I mean, look, every prosecutorial office has a different perspective on these things, and some of them are going to be more aggressive about using peremptories, some are not. And it's not really our job to tell them how to do their job. They're going to do it however they'd like to do it. So, yeah, everybody.
So
Another long day, but good day.
I know we've got some attorneys on this panel. If you have any questions, I would like to ask you, Wayne, are you going to be able to show the footage of the slaughter inside Foster Farms? Because we just played about a 45-second clip, and already we had people on this panel who were in tears.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's pretty interesting. One thing we got from the jury today is a number of the jurors themselves have concerns about the mistreatment of animals at Foster Farms and the mistreatment of human beings. On the question of whether the footage of Foster Farms cruelty will be admissible, it hasn't been determined yet. We obviously feel we have very strong legal grounds. In fact, virtually indisputable legal grounds, because one of the elements of the offense that's been charged against my client, Alexandra Paul, is that she had the intent to deprive Foster Farms of something of value. And I think what the footage of cruelty will show is that she wasn't there to steal anything. She was there to stop cruelty. And we have to be able to show the cruelty in order for the jury to say, okay, yeah, I see why. I understand it, because when animals are being boiled alive, when they're being buried alive, when 24 animals are improperly stunned on the slaughter line every 3 minutes, you can see why someone might be outraged and upset enough to try and help the animals themselves. So we'll see if the jury ultimately allows the evidence in, but we have very strong grounds for doing so, and I'm hopeful the judge makes the right decision. So far, I'm optimistic.
I have one question, because Foster Farms issued a lengthy statement today, and what they said was that they are the first major poultry producer to be independently audited and certified by the American Humane Association, and continues to receive outstanding animal welfare audit scores. What's your response to that? And do you think that will come up in trial?
Everybody who knows anything about agriculture knows that the AHA certification is a complete scam. This is not just animal rights activists, even people who work in animal welfare, the humane societies of the world, the animal welfare institutes of the world, the more kind of mainstream animal welfare nonprofits, they all know that the American Humane Association is a scam. Even if you go back and look at the history, AHA is in existence because AHA and HSUS split something like 50 years ago, because there's one side of the animal protection movement that said, hey, we should stop being a rubber stamp for big business and start actually protecting the animals. And I've been in AHA certified animal farms myself. Donnie on your panel has been in AHA certified farms himself. Donnie J. West was also an AHA certified farm. If you remember when we walked into that hellhole, there's literally a huge banner or emblem of the AHA certification on the outside of the farm. And inside, what do we find? We find animals collapsed on the ground in cages, animals with disgusting lesions on their heads so big. I mean, some of those animals, I mean, it was so disturbing, it was hard to even look at. You've got a lesion and a tumor on a chicken's head that's nearly as large as her own head, to the point you can't even see. The lesion has grown and become so infected and so filled with pus, it's blocking her own eye. And this is considered humane, right? That's not humane, that's a nightmare. And so this notion that the American Humane Association certification means anything is preposterous, because AHA gets its money from the industry. It's a rubber stamp from the industry. And every time anyone has looked inside their actual farms, these AHA farms, they see that it is the opposite of humane.
I know Donnie Moss had a question. Go ahead, Donnie Moss.
Yeah, hi Wayne. So Alexandra said that at first the jurors were sort of miffed by the fact that their time was being consumed over a petty theft charge. But then over time, some of their attitudes changed and they realized this is part of a bigger story. Did any of the jurors indicate to you what they thought that larger story is, or maybe what your goals are here?
I think the jurors are smart in figuring it out, that this is not just a question of petty theft. This is a question of one of the largest and most powerful corporations in the state of California, a company with $3 billion in revenue and enormous political influence, far beyond even the money they have, coming down on two people, innocent, good, beautiful human beings who are merely trying to help some animals who are suffering. And I think the jury's starting to figure that, even then in voir dire. And I'm hopeful and optimistic if some of this evidence gets in, and if we actually get them opportunity to make the arguments that we are entitled to make, the jury will make the right decision, which is the decision not just to let these women go, but to stand strongly for the right to rescue. And for the idea that animals are not just things. They're not just property. They're living beings who deserve protection. So we'll see where it goes. But it has been an interesting evolution, because initially when the jurors were saying this is a waste of time, they hear from the judge, we got all these lawyers, all these bailiffs, all these, judge in robes, courtroom staff, all here for two chickens that even the prosecution is conceding were worth at most $16 cumulatively. So how many times have you been able to convince multiple members of a district attorney's office? So I think they have 4 members of the district attorney's office sitting in court every single day. 4 prosecutors sitting in court because someone stole $16. Anyone remember an instance like that where you called the cops and said, someone took my notepad? And there were 4 attorneys, not even officers, but attorneys. These are all attorneys that are being probably paid $200,000 a year. So when was the last time you've ever heard of something like that? And the reality is, the reason you have all these attorneys, including a senior. So one thing that's pretty interesting is, the attorney that just got added to the case is a senior deputy district attorney who normally does felony cases. And I just read about a murder trial. Normally he's prosecuting first-degree murder. And somehow they decided that theft of $16 by their own argument. It wasn't even $16. But they're trying to allege that the theft of $16 is important enough that they have their prosecutor who normally does first-degree murder trials handling this case now. And that tells you a lot about the priorities of this district attorney and the corruption of our political system in favor of large corporations against ordinary people like my client.
Wow. And that is a good story. I mean, as a journalist, I would say, whoa, when there's many cases where if it's under a certain amount, there's no prosecution at all. They don't even arrest anybody. Okay.
Right.
So now for a petty theft, they've got this high-powered prosecution team. Wow, that says everything. I know you're just under an awning and not getting wet, so I don't want to keep you any longer. Does anybody have any questions? Mick does. Mick, go for it. Mick Davudian.
Hey, Wayne, great to see you. I have a quick one for you. For those of us who need some, legal things explained in simple terms. I heard about advice of counsel and mistake of law defense. Can you explain those and how they are going to be used or they impact this case?
Yeah, mistake of law defense is a defense to specific intent crimes, mainly crimes where you can't just be convicted because you did the act, but you have to prove that someone had a specific criminal intent associated with the act that makes them culpable and blameworthy for what they did, right? And an example of this is theft, right? If I go and take someone's wallet, but I have a good faith belief that it's my wallet, or even if I have a good faith belief that even though it's your wallet, I'm entitled to take it because maybe you owe me $100. And so I just decided I'm going to take this wallet because there's $100 in the wallet and you owe me $100. So I'm just going to take it and take the $100 because you owe it to me anyways. If you have a good faith belief that what you're doing is legal, then it destroys the intent to commit a theft, because what you're doing is not trying to take someone else's money. You're taking money and property that you think you're entitled to take. Right. So this is the idea of mistake of law, and it's a valid defense even if you're wrong. So, for example, in that wallet example, if Mick, you left your wallet on your table in LA, and I run up and take it, thinking to myself, Mick owes me $100. I'm just going to take his wallet, even if I'm not actually legally entitled to do it, and even if the attorney who advised me I'm entitled to take that wallet was wrong, it's still a defense of theft because theft requires the prosecution prove beyond a reasonable doubt that I had criminal intent, that I knew what I was doing was a prohibited act, I knew it was wrongful, I knew it was unlawful. And because theft is a specific intent crime, we can argue that Alexandra and Alicia had a good faith belief that what they were doing is legal, which they did. But even if they're wrong about it, they're still not guilty of the crime because they lack the requisite intent. So the advice of counsel defense is basically the same thing, except you add in the idea that you had a specific legal opinion about the case. And in our case, we have a specific legal opinion by a very distinguished criminal law scholar by the name of Hadar Avram. She's actually someone who is regularly called by the state media on all sorts of criminal justice issues, ballot initiatives involving crimes and changes to the criminal law of the state of California. She's literally the sort of person who writes the books on the law and teaches the students who become lawyers and judges and prosecutors about what the criminal law says. And what Hadar Avram wrote in 2018, which is the law of the state of California, is when you were in an emergency situation and an animal is injured, is dying, is sick, and you don't have any other alternatives because you've called the cops and you've tried everything else and the cops just aren't willing to help, you are entitled to take direct action to help the animal yourself. That is her advice to us as a network, as animal activists. This is the advice that my client received and read, and is the advice that led her to believe, and I still believe she's right about this, that she just had the right to rescue these animals, and foster farms did not have the right to torture them. So those are the kind of two of the big defenses that the judge so far has allowed. I'm grateful to him for that, but I'm also convinced that we're entitled to those defenses as a matter of law. So, well, the judge has ruled for us, and that's much better than in Utah and North Carolina. It's still ruling for us on defenses that we are entitled to bring.
Wow. I know you got to go. Nathan, you wanted to ask a quick question?
Yeah, quick. Hi, Wayne.
Okay.
My question is, I assume during jury selection, the jury has learned that there is a video, 45-second video that shows the taking of the chickens. Do you sense that they're able to sort of wrap their brains around that that's not the end of the case, that it's not, what's on that video is essentially nobody can guess. It's not a whodunit, that it doesn't end there. Do you sense that they're open to defenses?
Yeah. Not only open to defenses, they're coming up with the defenses themselves, which is a very, very good sign.
Yep.
And one of my first questions of Ordeer, I read the elements of petty theft, and one of the elements is that the defendants must have the intent to take something of value, no matter how slight. And I just asked the jurors, the prosecution's got to prove this beyond a reasonable doubt. Can you think of any reasons why this might not be proven, even if someone is on video taking someone else's stuff? And immediately, literally the first answer, I don't know if anyone's in court for this.
Yeah.
The first answer by one of the jurors was, well, yeah, it's a factory farm. They mistreat the animals. And these animals don't have any value to foster farms. They're treated like garbage. I mean, literally, her response was our defense. I was like, let's just call you up. You can replace me. You can be the attorney, and I'll sit as a juror. Well, they won't let me do that because I'm an attorney for Alexandra Paul. So my answer to the question of whether she's guilty is going to be predetermined. But
Was that juror allowed to stay, or did she get...
No, they struck her. Unfortunately, they struck her. But not because of that answer. They struck her for other reasons, because she said she had kind of a pre-existing view of big factory farming that would lead her to have a leaning in the case. And they struck her, and honestly, I'm not surprised the judge granted it, because it was probably an appropriate strike for cause, because she really didn't want to be there anyways, because she was a nursing mother. She's got I think she said a 3-month-old child she's dealing with. So I understood why they let her go.
Hey, Wayne, but isn't the great value in that scenario not, you may lose that one juror and that's too bad, but the real value is the rest of the jury pool has now heard about it, not from any of the litigants, but amongst themselves. They're suddenly they're talking about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's a great job. It's a great lesson.
Yeah, so much better for the arguments that come from the jury themselves. And this is the only opportunity the jury's going to have to speak in the courtroom until after the proceeding is entirely over. Or I guess at the end, they might get a chance to say, if they poll the jury and all of them will be able to say, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. Let's knock on wood. Not that you're wood. Carla's not wood. Carla, you're so much better and more beautiful than wood. But knock on wood that we'll get those not guilty verdicts. But this is the only opportunity we'll get to hear from the jury directly. And it's an important one for them to speak their truth. And, it's a lot more convincing because, a lot of people are going to look at me and say, this is a defense attorney, he's got a bias. And that's fair. I mean, obviously I do have a bias. I'm defending Alexandra. She's my friend. I think what she did was right, not a crime. But when it comes from a fellow juror, then the jurors can all nod and say to themselves, yeah, you know what? That makes sense. Why is stealing someone who's been so mistreated? Why is that a crime? And the jury themselves are coming up with the defenses. So we'll see. Still going to be an up-road battle. I mean, we've had good days. Don't get me wrong. I think the first couple of days have been very, very good for us. But it's still an extraordinarily uphill battle because we're up against the power of the state of California, one of the largest corporations in the state of California. We've got this subpoena battle. It's going to unfold tomorrow at 1:30. And they're realizing.
What is that briefly, the subpoena battle?
So I am moving to hold Foster Farms in criminal contempt tomorrow at 1:30 on the grounds that they have denied us crucial evidence that we need to defend our clients. Under California law, concealing evidence or obstructing justice in a criminal proceeding is itself a crime, right? Par for the course for this company because they commit crimes left and right. So I'm not surprised. But in this case, it's not just them, it's their lawyers. It's the staff members individually who have denied us access to crucial evidence we need to present a defense. So the way I explain this is if a officer walks up to you with a search warrant and enters your home and says, I'm legally entitled to enter your home because I have a legally enforceable search warrant that gives me, the legal right, in fact, the legal duty to investigate the premises because I have a warrant. That's no different than the subpoena we served on Foster Farms. They have an obligation to give us these documents and they refuse to give them. So tomorrow we're going to try and hold Foster Farms in criminal contempt and show the country that the real criminals here are not Alexandra Paul and Alicia Santurio. The real criminals here are the executives and higher-ups at Foster Farms that are torturing animals, trying to cover it up, punishing people for merely blowing the whistle, and then concealing evidence that those people need to defend themselves in court. That's not constitutional. That's not democratic. That's not right. And tomorrow we'll get a chance to make those arguments to the judge.
What is that evidence and how do we know they have it?
I'm not going to talk about that right now. So we'll find out tomorrow at 1:30.
Thank you so much, Wayne. You're amazing. I don't know. I'll have what he's having. Doesn't appear tired whatsoever despite a very long day. So we'll be back tomorrow and hopefully you'll have a jury at the end of the day and we'll see what happens.
I think we will. I think we'll by tomorrow.
Thank you.
All right.
Wayne,
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Wow. Fantastic panel. I want to get everybody's reaction. I mean, wow. Ellen Dent, what's your reaction to all of these developments?
Well, I think that one juror was absolutely amazing, and I'm sad they're not going to have her in the jury room, if this does proceed and they are able to get a jury out there. So I'm, unlike Alexandra Paul, like a bit concerned because it just seems like Foster Farms has such a stronghold in this area, and they may benefit from moving just like they did with the Smithfield trial. So that's my reaction, but, stay optimistic. Hopefully these jurors see and hear, this defense, and they realize that, they aren't the criminals here, just like Wayne said.
Yeah, and let's get everybody's reaction. We're going to be back tomorrow at 4:30 to have more trial coverage, but want to get everybody's final thoughts because it's been a very momentous day, even though they haven't gotten jury selection. My question to you, Nathan, if it is determined that they violated the law, Foster Farms, in some way, or their attorneys, could the judge just throw this whole case out?
Well, I mean, the Foster Farms is not, unfortunately, is not on trial. So that seems like it would be a drastic measure in this case. If the prosecution was in possession of evidence and failed to turn it over, ignored a judge's order, or somebody who's under the prosecution's control, that would be more likely to lead to a sanction that severe. But I guess it's possible. It's funny, I actually was just messaging Wayne to consider asking the judge for what's called an adverse inference charge, which essentially is the judge telling the jury that the prosecution, their witness failed to provide subpoenaed information, and the absence of that evidence allows you to presume that whatever that evidence is would be favorable to the defense on whatever issue you know, that this evidence is probative of. So, you know, we'll see. From a newsworthy standpoint, having an executive of Foster Farms would be fantastic, right?
Wow. Well, you know, I think things are turning. First day, which was on Tuesday, and so we're in day 3. Tomorrow's day 4. They still haven't gotten a jury. It seemed like, whoa, you know, there wasn't much media coverage. We were the only ones live outside court, and we're still the only ones live, by the way. But now we've got some things that are perking up in terms of media coverage. You have the Los Angeles Times writing an article on it. You have, and I'll show you those articles in a second right here. You've got this article, a news organization talking about open rescue. Here's the Los Angeles Times article. And by the way, we not only invite Foster Farms, but we invite the American Humane Association on any time to respond to anything that was said here or in court. Donnie, do you think that this could be a double whammy against factory farming? Wayne's just been acquitted in a very high profile case that cost a lot of money for the prosecution. That was in Utah. If these women are acquitted, will that be like a 1-2 punch to animal agriculture?
I think so, Jane. But I, you know, a part of me is wondering about, you know, our goal here is to sort of change hearts and minds of the public, to introduce into the public, mainstream public narrative, the importance of rescue and what goes on inside of factory farms and what goes on inside of slaughterhouses. And so I don't understand these alternative defenses, you know, advice of counsel. If they're acquitted on one of these other defenses, then does the sort of the rescue versus theft get lost in the narrative somehow? I don't know if Nathan can address that. I just, when Wayne was talking about and getting into the weeds, I was thinking, I hope we don't lose sight of the big picture, which is rescue.
Yeah, I mean, trials get really complicated. And what I've found is, you know, as exciting as a trial is outside court, and I've covered a lot of major trials, including, for example, the Michael Jackson trial, which was not that far away in Santa Maria, California, where, of course, what was happening outside was, it was a 3-ring circus, you know, in a lot of ways. It was quite exciting, and it kind of overshadowed a little bit sometimes what was happening in court. And the same thing is happening here. If you take a look at some of the protests that they're having outside court, oh my gosh, look at this. This is just one example. They have nightly protests with flares, and in another case, they were dressed up in chicken outfits. So, you know, I don't think that the media anyway is going to lose the plot. But I think the media will just report acquittal or not acquittal. And I don't know. I think either way, it could be a win for people who are trying to get this by hook or by crook into the public consciousness. If 2 women end up going to jail for 6 months because they rescued chickens, that would also possibly get into the public consciousness and might be even bigger win, because then they're martyred in that sense. So I don't know, maybe let's go back out to Carla for her thoughts, because you've been covering this. You know, cases are won or lost in jury selection, but cases are also won and lost in the media and how the media handles them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, you know, the way that the public perceives what's going on is going to have a factor in this. I mean, not with the jury, of course. They're told not to look up anything having to do with the trial, not to look up anything having to do with us or Foster Farms. But I do think that people are hearing the message, and as Wayne stated, there have been several jurors that that were sympathetic and that talked about you know, chickens in a way that made us hopeful for how this is going to turn out. But you never know.
Yep, you never know. All right, guys. Well, we're going to go to final thoughts. We've got 1 minute left. Let's get Mick Davudian's final thought, if we may.
Well, I mean, tomorrow should be exciting based on what Wayne was saying. They're going to be looking at throwing some things against Foster Farms. And Wayne is absolutely right. Foster Farms it's not surprising they're trying to hide, with the paperwork and so on. This is par for the course. This is what they do. And, they have a long history. You just go to their wiki page. You can see it. Back in 1998, they pleaded guilty to a violation of the Safe Water Act. They dumped 11 million gallons of manure polluted water into the wildlife refuge. They pleaded guilty to that. So it's not surprising that they are acting the way they are acting. They don't care about humans. They don't care about animals. It's all about the almighty green dollar.
And I have to say, I can't independently confirm what you just said. And we invite Foster Farms on at any time. All right, final thought for Donnie Moss.
Yeah, my final thought, and I said this at the beginning, is I'm really surprised that Foster Farms is allowing this prosecution to go forward. Wayne said yesterday that they were on board, but with the Inside Edition coverage, with the LA Times coverage, with their name being in the titles of these stories, they have to be second guessing their decision to move forward with this, because you have to know that there are going to be many, many people who Google Foster Farms and look up Foster Farms on YouTube and see the truth about what goes on inside those farms, a truth that was fairly well hidden before this trial. So it's also, of course, now easy to understand why people like Alexandra Paul and Alicia Santurio do what they're doing, because they want people to learn the truth about what's going on inside of Foster Farms and other factory farms. So I'm just grateful that Foster Farms didn't insist that the charges be dismissed.
Wow. It's a very good point. You never know. I always say high profile trials are runaway freight trains. You never know where they're going to go. All right. Nathan, final thoughts. And by the way, we're going to be back tomorrow at 4:30 for more coverage, thanks to our intrepid on-the-scene reporter, Carla Cabral, who's doing an extraordinary job. I think we got to give her a round of applause. Come on. She's in the rain. She's getting all the key figures, the defendant, the defense attorney. Wow. Final quick thought, Nathan.
Two quick thoughts. First, I've been a defense attorney for 20 years. To hear Alexandra walk out of the courtroom during jury selection and be as thrilled as she is, and talking about some of the things that the jurors were raising, it's fantastic news. I stand by what I said a couple of nights ago, that I think Foster Farms is going to be absolutely, and the prosecution is going to be embarrassed by bringing this case. The last thing is, when you put on the screen and read Foster Farms' statement, and knowing the video from inside the farm that you showed earlier, you just can't help but think of how upside down the world sometimes feels, because that statement, shouldn't just be made in, a New York Times response for questioning. Foster Farms' executives, they should be sitting in a courtroom in the defendant's chairs, having to answer, if they want to testify and they want to get on the stand in their own defense, answering to why they are committing mass animal cruelty in violation of California's penal laws. There are laws on the books in California, which has the strictest animal cruelty laws in the country. And there's no exception for animal agriculture. Many states have exceptions for things like, for animal agriculture, animals used for food, sadly used for testing. California doesn't have those exceptions. There are no exceptions for chickens. So, the witnesses in this case should be the activists who bear witness to the atrocities that are committed by Foster Farms. Foster Farms should be the defendants in this case. And if they want to issue a statement, do it from the defendant's witness chair.
All right. As per usual, I've lost track of who has given their final statements. Have you given your final statement, Ellen?
No, I haven't.
Yes, please do.
I'm just like really, really glad that this is happening, that this case is happening at all, and that it is being brought to trial. And every single day that it's happening, it's going to gain even more attention and more of the public eye, because they are getting the kind of mainstream media that they're going to need in order to let the public know what is happening to these chickens inside of the animal agriculture industry. And I'd also like to bring up that the Save movement, animal Save movement, got so much notoriety around the world because Anita Kreinz was in court for 2 years until she was acquitted. So, you know, whether it's an acquittal or they prosecute them, they are going to get this story out there. And I think that's just so incredibly important.
Thank you so much. Has everybody said their piece? Anybody want to say anything else? All right, I want to say my piece, and that is to invite everybody, please, to download Unchained TV. You can be watching this on our streaming network. You could be watching this on our social media, but we have a global streaming network, the world's only free nonprofit global streaming network for animal rights and the vegan lifestyle. And we're the CNN, Netflix of veganism and animal rights. We are 100% free. We are nonprofit. You can use that QR code to download. You can download it on your phone. You can download it via your app store. You can download it on your TV via your Apple TV device, or if you have a Roku device, or if you have an Amazon Fire Stick. And we're soon going to be on all Samsung televisions. So please support us. We've done what normally costs billions of dollars, no exaggeration, billions of dollars for very little money, but we don't have millions of dollars in marketing. We need to rely upon the good faith and the excitement of the vegan community to get the word out about Unchained TV. So download it, and we will be back tomorrow for more continuing coverage of this extraordinary trial, the trial of Baywatch actress Alexandra Paul and her co-defendant Alicia Santurio, who rescued 2 chickens from a slaughter truck.